Hello, welcome to Keith Broken Boats. We're going to start putting this gimbal housing together. Well, the first thing is by putting the gimbal bearing in. Those notches face the engine, that plain side faces out, so it will go that direction in the gimbal housing. This is a greasable bearing. Grease comes down this tube here into this hole in the side of the bearing, which then goes into the bearing. So I've marked where the hole is on the side of the bearing to line it up with that grease tube. And then I've got this hydraulic oil filter cap, which is just the right size, which I'm going to use to push this bearing home. I haven't got a press. I have got a 3-ton dumper. So I've set it up with a 3-ton bottle jack, that hydraulic oil filter cap on top of the bearing, underneath the dumper on a lump of wood. And all I'm going to do is operate the jack, and instead of jacking up the dumper, it's jacking down that bearing into that housing. What I didn't realise is the hydraulic cap is going to foul on the lugs on the inside of that cap. So what I've done is I have to resort to an old wheel bearing with a 3/4 inch drive socket under the jack again, and I'm just going to carry on jacking that down until I start to lift the dumper up. Once I start to lift the dumper up a bit, I know it's all home. Take the jack out, take the socket off, that old bit of an old wheel bearing that comes out, and that's it. That's the bearing all nicely as far as it can go back in the housing. Now I've greased it. I've got a bit of grease coming out of the casing, but that grease there is coming out the inside of the bearing along with that little bit there. So I know this bearing will grease when it's on my boat. Now I'm going to fit the trim senders. These clamp into the back of the gimbal bearing housing with those 2 bolts, and then you've got one for the port side, which is a limit switch, and the starboard side, which is the sender. And there's the wires. Now this is the water pipe that is for the raw water. That water pipe goes through the bearing housing there, and that rubber pipe fits onto it. And this is also clamped in on the back of that housing. Now I'm going to get some bellows adhesive, put it around the gear shift port where the gear shift cable comes through. The same on the inside of the gear shift selector bellows. I put an earth clamp on there, so it's the Jubilee clippers earth, and then you're just going to get that and shove that down as far as I can. Okay, now I haven't put the gimbal housing, the gimbal ring in here yet. I'm sort of trying to put some bits in that, while I've got enough room. I don't know if this is the right or the wrong way to do this, but I'm just nipping up the Jubilee clip now on that shift bellows. I'm using a 7mm spanner. Now some more bellows adhesive around the exhaust port. I'm going to get this exhaust bellows in. Like I say, I've never done bellows on one of these before. I don't know if I'm doing this the right or the wrong way. So I'll put some exhaust adhesive around the inside of the bellows. And this bellows adhesive, it almost acts like an impact adhesive, which is great for sticking them on, and it's a bit of a pain to try and get them in. But the Jubilee clip on this goes on the top of the exhaust port, because there's a little hole in the side, but I'm shoving that down as far as I can get it, right down in there. And just have a quick check, see, just checking it's as far down in there as I can, and then you get to that Jubilee clip with a screwdriver through the hole in the side of the housing. But I must admit, this seemed a little bit awkward, and I managed to do it with a little ratchet, 1/4 drive ratchet with a 7mm socket on. And this just seemed an easier way of doing it to me while I got it in this many bits. If I had the gimbal ring in, probably I wouldn't be able to get my ratchet in there to do it. I'd have to use the screwdriver, but there you go, that's in. Just give it a tug, make sure it's home properly, and I'm away. Now I'm going to put my bottom bearing into the gimbal ring. Now I've bought this bottom bearing, it's not an original Mercury's one, so I've had to grind a little hole in the back of it so that grease nipple there lines up with a hole in the back of that housing so that I can grease it. Did that with a little grinder. I'm just tapping that now down into place and putting the seal in. Now if you notice, I've got the cup of the seal facing out. That is to stop, so it's sealing to stop water and rubbish going into the bearing. Do the same on the bottom, cup facing out. I don't want to seal the grease in. I don't mind if the grease comes out when I grease it, but I don't want water and rubbish going in. So that's why the seals are facing out, not in. Those two are in now. It's just a case of lining up the pin on the bottom and sliding it in. I've covered everything in a load of anti-seize compound, copper slip, to not just help it come together, but if it's ever got to come apart again, it will hopefully stop some of that aluminium corrosion and stop me taking this apart. Once I've got all that in line and that pin in, I'm going to put the top swivel pin in. Now I've seen on YouTube, you've got like loads of people, there's loads of copper slip going on that now. They'll sort of say, yeah, I'm going to put the top swivel pin in, and then it cuts to them with the top swivel pin in, all done and dusted. And I realise why now, because getting all this in, it's like trying to wrestle a monkey with 3 arms. I couldn't believe it. You've got to get your pin in and lined up with the squares in the gimbal ring. You've got to then get a spacer ring in just below the fork. You've then got to try and get the fork on there in the right place, in the right orientation to the gimbal ring. Then a washer on the top of the fork, and then the nut. And as you can see, this is a little bit fiddly on your own. You could almost do with another arm to hold the monkey down. But a bit of perseverance, you sort of get it all together slowly. You sort of getting the washer on now, in there. There is only just enough room to get your fingers in. So it's just trying to turn it to line everything up. Then once you've got it, you just got to quickly try and drop that nut in before it all falls apart, which is easier said than done. And then once you've got that nut on, you can just about get your fingers in there to get it to start turning. Bit noisy where I am today, so you just keep fiddling and tweaking with it, and eventually you'll be able to get that nut on the top there just to start. Once that's started, you'll be able to tighten it up, and then that will pull it all together. So you run that down as far as you can with your fingers, but it is a lock nut, and then it's basically a spanner on it, about 1/4 of a turn at a time if you're lucky, and you tighten that nut down on top of that fork, and you keep going. Well, I just kept going till it was tight, and then once I got it tight, I then backed it off and set my gap on the bottom yoke, which I'll show you hopefully shortly. Okay, I'm just setting the tolerance on the gimbal ring so as it swivels freely now. So what I've done is I've just backed off that top nut on top of the fork in there just a bit, and then I'm going to get a screwdriver, wedge that in between the gimbal ring and the top of the housing, the top of the gimbal housing, so as it takes the play out. And then I've got a 10th thou and an 18th thou feeler blade. I want the 10th thou to go in, and I want the 18th thou not to go in. So once I've got that, then I'm going to put the bolt back in the top of the yoke and clamp it to the top swivel pin, and that's done. Right. Now I'm just going to get the split pin in this bottom pin on this yoke. It just doesn't quite slide in. It's wedged in behind the bottom of that gimbal ring, so just giving it a couple of taps with a screwdriver to get it to go, and then on the other end a few taps just to start to open it up. But the easiest way I found was to get a pair of grips, a pair like pipe grips, open them up so that they were as wide as the yoke, and then just squeeze the end of that split pin just to flatten the ends of the ears. There's only like probably like 5 mil or so that pokes through of that split pin, and there it is, in, done, dusted. Nice stainless steel split pin in there. There's my spacer ring. Now I'm going to start with the exhaust bellows. These are marked up. You've got like a top forward which goes into the gimbal housing, and then a top aft which goes onto your leg. So there's the markings on it. Right, I'm just going to have a bit of a dry run at fitting this exhaust bellows, just this drive shaft bellows, to see how it fits and how easy it is to get in there. And as it sort of stands, without any of the bellows adhesive on or anything, I can actually get it to pop down right in there. So what I'm going to do is get the adhesive on it and everything and have a go. But this is another part of the YouTube video that I've noticed where people turn around and say, yeah, just going to put the exhaust bellows in now, that we're going to put the drive shaft bellows on now, and the next shot is they're all in and done and dusted. And exactly the same reason, they are just a little bit of a pig to do. You know, they sort of, again, it's like wrestling with a monkey. They don't want to go on, especially when you put the bellows adhesive on, because it acts like an impact adhesive. But you'll see in a minute, I'll show you. Okay, dry run complete. Here we go, I know it fits. Crimping on the earth tag. This is the tag that earths the Jubilee clip to stop it corroding. Keeps continuity between the gimbal housing and everything else. Spray with some solvent cleaner. Quick wipe round. Make sure it's nice and clean. Then go in with your bellows adhesive. Put a good layer around the inside of where that bellows is going to sit on that outside that bearing housing. There's a rib on the inside of the bellows. You can just see it there. That rib actually sits down inside the lip, which is on the aluminium cast of the housing. So again, put a good liberal coat of bellows adhesive onto the inside of that bellows, and then get it and shove it down on there. Now you leave the bellows adhesive, it says leave it to go off for a few minutes before you put it together. And what that seems to do is that's like, I think it's like an impact adhesive, so as it goes together it sticks. So you can see this now starts to get awkward. Before I put the bellows adhesive and everything on, that just slotted straight down in there. Now I've got the bellows adhesive on, the bellows adhesive is gripped, and it is a struggle to shove it down in there. So you just have to keep persevering. There's obviously a bit of editing in this because this took a lot longer than what I'm just showing you, but all I'm showing you is you've just got to keep on going, keep pushing it until you're happy that that has got home. Okay, so once, like now I'm happy it's down in there. I've got a 7mm socket on a Jubilee clip, going underneath the bellows ring to get down into the back of that gimbal housing, and I am tightening up that bottom Jubilee clip. There was quite a bit of editing in the shoving the bellows on because you didn't want to watch 20 minutes of my elbow stuck in the camera like it is now. Okay, so I'm just getting a torch, shining it in down in there, making sure I'm happy that that's all nice, tightened up and everything, and good to go, and move on to the next bit. Now there is a little clip that goes around the water pipe, which clips the electric cable to the trim limit switch to the water pipe to stop it fouling anywhere. So I'm just sort of popping that in now. Now I'm going to put on like the bell housing part of the gimbal, the bit that the leg bolts do, and I've got to get that gear shift cable through that hole in the gear shift bellows. Now I did try loads of real clever making little plastic funnels, try and push in there, and I came to the conclusion that the only way you get it through there is through brute force and ignorance. I kept shoving and shoving and shoving until it came out the other end. And once it's out the other end, you can just gently pull it through that gear shift bellows until you've got the cable right through. Okay, so now I'm going to put the drive shaft bellows onto the bell housing part of the gimbal. So I've just clipped on that continuity clip. Do the same as drop the Jubilee clip into place, and then you're going to be getting bellows adhesive, wiping that all around the inside of there. Again, good layer, plenty of adhesive on these. I don't know if the way I'm putting these bellows on is the right method or the wrong method or what. It's just the way I'm doing it. So this isn't a how-to, this is just me struggling to get this back together. So I've put bellows adhesive on the that bell housing, and I've been pulling the gear cable through. Now just trying to line it all up in there. Keep pulling the gear cable through a little bit more to give me a bit more play in it. And then once I've got it started on that, I just start shoving and shoving and pulling and swearing, and I eventually get it down. Okay, as I'm pushing it down, I've got my hand inside that gear where the gear shift bellows is, and I'm pulling the gear shift. As I'm pushing down on the bell housing, I'm pulling that bellows up, and this is tight, and I'm sure it's tight because of the adhesive has made it all grip. Right, now I've got it down, just got my torch in there, checking to see that it's down properly. I think it's there. Where's the Jubilee clip? I've made a mistake. Are you supposed to get to that? I just can't get to the Jubilee clip. I just can't get to I've got the Jubilee clip in the wrong place. That would be the obvious place. And I didn't put it there. You idiot. Where have I put it? Before you put this bell housing on, you want to make sure that you've got the Jubilee clip in a place where you can tighten it up. This is going to hurt. Thought it would. So I had to take it all apart again, go through all of that struggling and pushing to get it on. And I positioned the Jubilee clip there where I could get to it, and then I just went through and tightened. Then I got the water hose, shoved that down onto its fitting all the way till it was home, and then put the Jubilee clip on and tightened it up. Now I've got the exhaust bellows, crimping on the continuity clip for the Jubilee clip, and copious amounts of bellows adhesive again. Both surfaces. This is getting a bit awkward to put on now everything's together and not giving me much space. But I managed to get in there, to get it all around there, knock the camera over while I'm doing it, and all around the aluminium part that it's got to go onto. Then all around the inside of the exhaust bellows. Right, I've made myself a little bit of a special tool, hammered over the end of this bit of copper pipe so that I can put that down inside the exhaust port and pull that bellows up into position with it. So I'm just working my way around now with that little copper pipe which has got the hook on it, and just pulling that exhaust bellows up into place. Then once I'm happy it's far enough up there, again 7mm socket, quarter drive socket on a long extension, and I'll get in there and tighten it down. Then a quick check, make sure I'm happy with it. That's the bellows fitted. Now I'm going to fit the pivot pins. So you have got like a nylon spacer wear disc that goes in there. And I'm just pushing that in and lining it up. And then once I've got it all in line, I'm just going to get that swivel pin, get it to start and wind it in. I'm not whacking these up really tight at the moment, just using the special tool to spin it in so it's all the way home. I shall tighten all these up when it's on the boat, when I go around doing all my final checks, but I'm not sure if I've got to have this apart again, so I don't want to torque it all up and Loctite it and everything and then have to do it again. I'm going to spin it around, do exactly the same to the other side. Now I'm going to go around it, put in all the little earth straps in place, which gives continuity between all the parts. This is to prevent galvic corrosion. It keeps everything at the same electrical potential. And put plenty of copper slip on the screws that screws it all together, because if you can't get these out when you're trying to take it apart, they probably could be a bit of a pig. But there's a few little straps around it, just connecting them all up now. Just putting the trim senders on now, again using copper slip on the screws. Obviously when I get all this on the boat and it all connected up, the sensor and the limit switch will have to be set in the right positions, so they'll all have to be adjusted. So it's just putting them in place now so they don't get in the way when I'm doing any more fitting to this. And there you go, all back in one piece. Don't forget, thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you want more. Really appreciate for watching this. Thank you very much.